you've got to keep grounded and know that you're on a journey that by definition is difficult and will fail a lot. And you've just got to keep being able to get back up again. My name is Richard Browning. I'm founder and chief test pilot from Gravity, and we build 1,000 horsepower jet suits, of which there is a few sitting behind me. This started out as a dream, as a crazy idea that surely couldn't be possible. And then over about 8 months of failing an awful lot and picking myself back up and learning from those failures, I got to the point of this working. And since then, it's scaled all over the world. And we, before the lockdown, got to about 103 events in 30 countries. And I've got 7 other pilots. We must have trained 50 clients. And we're even building a race series. It's been really quite an unusual journey. I fly 1,000 horsepower jet suits. They are essentially a backpack and arm assemblies, little things you put on your arms. They have 2 little jet engines on each of the arms, and then another sort of slightly larger jet engine on your back. The engines are just the same, really, as the kind of engines you get on a civil airliner or a jet fighter. In fact, I've got one, not the plan, but here you go. There is a jet engine. Sucks in air at the front and blows lots of air out the back. And if you blow enough of that air downwards, then you tend to go the other way. And the clever thing is to try and adjust your arms in a way that means if you flare your arms out, there's not much of the thrust blowing downwards, and so you'll sink down again. If you want to go back up, you just point your arms downwards again. And so you can fly around almost like a noisy superhero. Some of the events, there's been so many now that myself or my team have flown at. Some that spring to mind, things like flying in Saudi Arabia, in India for one of the TEDx events. I've done 5 TED events now. I've flown in the mountains in Arizona for GoPro. That was pretty amazing. And when you're 6,000 feet up, then there's a lot less air density. The air's thinner and the engines don't work very well. So that was a memorable one because even the skinniest of my team struggled to get off the ground initially, and we had to go and move the filming to really early in the morning when it was cold, and that helped with the air density. I've flown in all over the United States. I've flown in China, in Japan, Dubai, all over Europe. We've flown in South Africa, even Brazil is another one. One of the events that really stands out was actually flying with my old Royal Marines beret on around one of the new aircraft carriers the UK's built. So it's a £3 billion, $4 billion aircraft carrier, and actually flying around it and going out and visiting all of the inbound boats with all the senior generals and things on board coming to visit it. That was pretty special. In the early development, we did do a lot of crashing, but the critical thing was we were always flying only a few feet off the ground. It's actually harder to fly close to the ground. When you fly a decent height off the ground, you get a lot less of the warm air recirculating around. It's quite buffety when you're low down. But yeah, we had lots of crashes early on, but really it was all about just keeping them safe. So it was like falling off a bike. It's not fun, but it didn't do anybody any permanent damage. And then throughout sort of the 100 or so events we've done, we've had a couple of times when we had problems, nothing very serious. But in training and development, we've had lots of crashes. And again, the critical thing is just to keep them all safe. So you just don't go too high, or if you're pushing the speed and the height, you do it over water. The very first time I properly flew was in November 2016, and this was with a little engine on each leg and another pair on each arm. And it was only 6 seconds, and it was about 4 or 5 feet off this test, farmyard area we were doing. It was really fun. It was just ridiculous. It was the culmination of many, many months of failure and trying and reinventing and picking myself back up again. And to actually feel like I was in the air, gliding along, just kind of almost in the serene, dreamlike state. It was just really awesome. And I knew as soon as I landed, I knew that was the beginning of something that could only get better. It was very crude back then, but yeah, that was an amazing, amazing feeling. So we've got a team now of about 12 in the UK, sort of core team of more like 5 or 6. I've got 2 guys particularly who are both engineers and also pilots, which is great because then when they go and do an event around the world, I mean, they're only in their early 20s, but I'll pack them off to somewhere like China and do an event with a one support person. And then they'll come back not only having delivered some live TV event, but they'll also have a whole load of ideas of how we can improve and tweak the design. So it's really nice to have those skills all in only a few people. Yeah, a big part of my childhood when I wasn't at boarding school was hanging out in my dad's workshop. And really, that was just a big double garage that didn't have any cars in it. It just had a whole load of tools and lots of kind of bits of scrap wood and scrap aluminium. And it was just a treasure trove of things that you could fiddle with and file and cut and glue together and, screw together and whatever. So actually, in hindsight, it was really valuable to get that hands-on time. It would be a bit like nowadays, probably just as a young person playing with lots of different forms of coding, where you just sort of build a little script and launch it and have fun with that, make an Arduino blink. And it was almost like the physical version of that. And I completely appreciate nowadays it's probably almost more valuable to do that in the virtual world of coding. But it was a complete playground of creativity. What I'm trying to say is we've been reactive and adaptive, yeah? And I think if you've just left education, this is really tough because you've been in a structure since you were small that has been all about, in the end, here's a textbook, this is what you've got to do, here's the problems, go solve them, thank you for the answers, well done, here's your mark. That's cool, but the world doesn't really work like that. The world tends to spit you out into the ether and expect you to go and self-generate your own thing. Where are you going to go? What career, what pathway, which business, what are you going to do? You've just got to see it as a challenge. You've got to see it as something that you don't wallow in the misery of what you were planning to do. Try and start getting creative about what you can do. Unfortunately, human nature seems to work best under pressure of things like war situations where you clearly do not have an option but to go and try and tackle this threat that's coming at you. Almost see it like that. I'm hearing lots of stories of businesses and even individuals who are just being creative and playing with these new circumstances. I mean, as a silly local example, there's a market stall trader near where we live here that used to run a fruit and veg stall. Within days of this lockdown, he set up a Facebook site and then started offering out to package up in boxes fruit and veg, right? I mean, it's not a new idea, but he, without blinking, just went, right, let's just try it. What's the downside, right? I'm going to run around, pack boxes. It has gone insane. He has now bought a huge, great big premises. In the space of the 7 weeks we've been in lockdown, he's now built an enormous distribution empire and in a whole new market that didn't exist before. I mean, I know we can't all do that kind of thing, but just be creative and explore and test and don't be afraid to fail as long as you can keep picking yourself back up again. Have an entrepreneurial idea, have a business idea, a crazy idea, even if it's just going to learn to run a 5K park run. Whatever it is, life's all about a series of challenges. As quickly as you can, work out what you need to do in order to get off the piece of paper or off the idea in your head into something tangible and go, oh, look, I put my trainers on, I'm really going to do this. Get yourself convinced as soon as you can, and then go down that journey as fast and as efficiently as you can, repurposing what you can to go and achieve your goal. We used to use baby rucksack carrier thingies as the backpacks for these way in the early day because it was just easy to repurpose them to carry the equipment. And then, as I mentioned earlier, make failure recoverable. Whether it's financial, whether it's safety, or whether it's your reputation, because that's very important. Just keep experimenting, but just according to those 3 rules, get back up again and keep exploring and keep trying. You've got to keep grounded and know that you're on a journey that by definition is difficult and will fail a lot. And you've just got to keep being able to get back up again and adapt. And that might mean changing direction slightly. So we've essentially got just a big R&D area. That's a 3D printer, which is we 3D print everything in the on the suit, which I'm going to take you to now. But they're such big items. So if you see here, this is all. This is the backpack. It's confusing. That helmet should be facing the other way. The pilot would be going that way, but it just kind of looks cool if you do it like that. This is all 3D printed polymer, printed on a machine and much bigger than our one, but we just prototype small things on our machine. These are the arm assemblies. There we go. So you just put your arm down through the tube. In fact, that you can see here, you put your arm down through, I can't steer, here we go, there. and then you feel the engines really just push up your arm as if you're just leaning on a table. It's kind of really not difficult. Then there's the rear engine there, and then the fuel tanks behind the covers. You can see a little bit of the squashy fuel tank here. And we've got several. In fact, I think we've got 5 suits knocking around here, and there's an experimental one there I can't talk about too much. Up on the wall, again, it's harder works than it looks. We've got an Iron Man helmet. I was given that by James Hobson, the hacksmith, this big YouTuber. We did a thing with him before. But up on the wall behind me, we've got a little bit, if I turn on the lights, which is that is the intake of a Harrier engine. Obviously. On the wall here, we've got lots of failed, kind of crashed early stage prototypes. See, there's the boots I flew with originally, and the very first one that flew. They had engines stuck to the back of them. Crazy idea. There is some of the backpacks, an original kind of waste sort of assemblage of batteries and control systems. And yeah, here's some crashed ones. See how bent that thing looks up there? That you can see that should be round there. And that shouldn't have all those kinks in. So yeah, you were asking about failure. There's a little bit of example. And just out here, I've just closed the blinds because of the amount of sun that's coming in. To give you an idea of how busy we were with events, all of those are event lanyards. Look at that. There we go. That's some of the 100 or so events in 30 countries we've done all over the world. And yeah, and a bit of a wider shot, you can see wings stuck to the ceiling. Oh, and some grass skis. All sorts of stuff going on. It's a bit of an Aladdin's cave of crazy things, to be honest.